Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And this is Bob Gibbons, and we're here with another great show for the day. And today we're going to be learning about some agricultural information, Stephen.
Awesome.
You up on your agriculture?
No.
No. Okay, good. I knew you weren't. We're excited because we have Blake Shook and Brandon Shook. And Blake is the founder of Desert Creek Honey, based in Blue Ridge, Texas.
One creek, Desert Creek Honey.
What did I say?
Desert Creek Honey.
All right. It's already going downhill. So the cool thing about this is that this started off as a hobby for Blake when he was 12, I think it was.
You got it. Yeah.
So 12 years old, and has turned that into a booming business with 15 employees. He brought in his brother Brandon to be the president not too long ago. So there's all kinds of cool stuff to learn about. Blake has been at this for a long time. He's been on the American Beekeeping Foundation Executive Director, the National Honey Board, Texas Beekeepers Association, and Collin County Hobby Beekeepers Association. That seems like a lot of work doing all that extra stuff.
A lot of beekeeping.
No kidding.
A lot of beekeeping. You can find out more at desertcreekhoney.com.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Glad you are.
Start off every show with wisdom of others, and you guys provided a quote, and then you provided a quote, and you didn't even know it. So I'm going to go with the second quote you provided, which is, "My business is built from 1,000 mistakes."
Yeah, and that's very true. I mean, there's so much truth to that, and I can think of probably 10,000, but we kept it at 1,000 today.
So what's the important thing about making mistakes?
That you learn from them. I mean, we all make so many mistakes in business and in life in general, but especially in business. And, starting as a kid, starting as a new entrepreneur, growing to a large company or at least a rapidly growing company, it takes so much work, and there's so much you can never prepare for. No college course, no book can ever prepare you for all that you're going to experience. And so, 1,000 mistakes come along with that.
I was on the plane coming home yesterday, and I was reading Inc. magazine.
Private plane?
Yeah. Yes, Virgin America private plane. And they were talking about the most important things to do in the first 90 days of starting a business. And there's a real movement of people that think you shouldn't have a business plan. Because when you have a business plan, it kind of locks you into a certain mindset.
Right.
And so if you go on without a business plan and allow the mistakes and the successes to determine where you go, that's a better way. Now, I don't know if I'm not endorsing one way or the other, but did you start with a business plan?
Oh, well, my 12-year-old brain didn't go quite that far at the time. So
how about today?
Yeah, today a little bit more, but not much more than at 12.
That's why you had to bring Brandon,
exactly, right. He's the brain of the operation. No, I certainly didn't. I mean, at 12, starting the company, all I knew is that, hey, bees were kind of cool. And all of a sudden I was making honey, and everybody wanted honey. And so I said, hey, I should just sell this stuff. And so I started selling it. More and more people wanted it. And I said, well, I guess I better get more.
So you immediately thought of this as a business, not just a hobby.
Yeah. I mean, ever since I was even a littler kid, I'd always tried to look for ways to start businesses. And I had started, little kid businesses from the time I could walk.
Like what?
Used to sell lemonade, used to paint fences for neighbors, had a little chicken farm when I was 8. I had like a couple hundred chickens and was hatching 500 or 600 baby chickens at a time and selling eggs. And
wow, that's a messy business.
And it was messy, and mom and dad said, hey, you need to expand your horizons. The last thing we want is a chicken farm in the backyard. and so I got into bees, and so instead they had a bee farm in the backyard.
So they got stung instead of
exactly.
Did you have a poster of Bo Pilgrim in your bedroom?
I wanted one so bad. That it was my dream was to be Bo Pilgrim, but thankfully that dream faded just a little bit.
So you were really thinking entrepreneurship the whole time, or was it just excess energy that you?
Oh, it was excess energy. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of energy. I had a lot of fun making something out of almost nothing. A lot of fun making money, and a lot of fun, just along the way. And so, yeah, it was never this drive to just be a empire builder.
Sure.
It was just, hey, this fit well into my personality.
So what kind of support? I mean, you said your parents said, "Hey, maybe you need to broaden your horizons," but it sounded to me it was almost as much out of I don't want that many chickens in my yard. But I mean, like, what type of support did your
Right.
parents provide to create that mindset?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, my parents were very instrumental. They always encouraged entrepreneurism. They always encouraged. I had 4 brothers, no sisters. We always lived out in the country. They always encouraged us to work hard. They encouraged us to start businesses, and so they were very supportive all along the way. I mean, they begged me to get my driver's license at 15 and 16 because, they were driving me all over the place for years. And so, but they did, they took me to countless meetings. I was, they were driving me to go speak at beekeeping conferences before I could drive. And,
Wow.
and so they were very instrumental, very
Now,
supportive.
why would somebody want you to speak at a beekeeping conference when you're 14 years
I have
old?
no idea. No
I mean,
clue.
was it? Well, I mean, I'm not really asking that as a joke. Was it a novelty, or was it because you immediately realized some information that they didn't?
The average beekeeper is, in their 60s. Only 4% of beekeepers are under 40 years old. And so, yeah, it was a bit of a novelty to have a young person interested in doing this as a career was very unusual. And so to have a young person that kind of dove head over heels into the industry and was involved in the industry on an association level, yeah, so it was all a bit unusual. And so I was really instrumental in building a youth program and helping run youth programs to get young people involved in beekeeping. And so in the early years, I traveled a lot and spoke about that, getting more youth into beekeeping. And then as I got older, it transitioned more into, the how-tos of beekeeping, teaching commercial beekeeping, how to go from a hobby to a commercial operation, because most beekeeping operations are generational. You've got 5 generations of beekeepers. It's pretty unusual to have one person go from nothing to a commercial operation. And so they wanted to hear about that too. How do you make that happen?
So where were your initial sales as you're commercializing this? I mean, let's talk about the evolution of the business. So, it's you're doing a lot, you're involved in all different levels of it, and you're getting the business going. Who are your original supporters, your original customers, and then how did that grow to what it is today?
Yeah, great question. So the original customer, the first store that I ever got into was a local health food store called Mike's Health Collection in McKinney.
Okay.
And they were the very first person. I thought I had just conquered the world at that point, because I was selling honey in a grocery store. I was probably 14 at the time. Wow. And so they were the first store I ever got into. Yeah. And then a couple years later, Market Street Grocery Store called. Wow. And they said, "Hey, we're interested in picking you up for all of our DFW stores." And I
how did they know about you?
I don't know. I don't know how they found me to this day. I think one of the spouses of one of the managers took a beekeeping class that I helped teach at the time, and said, "Hey, we need to give this kid a shot," and they did, and that was the first kind of chain grocery store that we got into. So, and then of course it's evolved since then, and Brandon's been instrumental in helping us evolve more into Amazon and some other grocery store chains, and moving beyond just mom and pop shops to a little more commercial with our product.
Let's save that for a little bit later,
Sure.
but still sticking back in the early days, when did you decide, I mean, you're still in high school, so when did you decide that this was going to be a career and not go to college to do something different?
Yeah, that was a hard decision because, choosing not to go to college is a hard thing to do.
Because we're all set up that we have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Massive pressure.
Right.
Unless you're Peter Thiel.
And that's true. And so honestly, the decision came, I was 18. I was trying to decide, do I stick with this bee thing and go into it full time? Do I go to college? And then I met my wife, and I met her when I was about 16. About 18, I decided I just had to marry this girl, but I didn't have any money. And so I said, well, what's the quickest way to make money? I was like, I can make money in bees. And
so when were you when you married her?
I was 20 when I married her.
Wow, 2 years.
And so I said, I think I can take this and in 2 years make a living. And college is going to be at least 4 to 6 years. And so I said, hey, I'm going to give it a shot. And I already love it. So there's that. And so I did. And in a couple years it was making a living. And
All right.
that's
So
just history.
what did your girlfriend's dad?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that
that was a question.
You're not going to go to
Yeah,
college.
it was funny because he's one of the people I asked about his advice on college when I was 18, and I said, hey, what do you think about going to college? And he said, well, college is for people that don't know what they want to do in life. and I said, well, okay. And so I said, okay, I guess I'm not going to college. He didn't know I liked his daughter at that point.
Oh, okay.
And but no, when I was 18, I said, hey, I'd like to get to know your daughter. I'd like to date her. He's like, well, I need to see a business plan. And so I brought a whole business plan and, a 2-year goal and, our financial statements, our tax statements. And I was
Is
like,
your
hey,
father-in-law's name Laban? Like, the
No.
whole Jacob
Yeah,
and Rachel
no.
story in the Bible?
No, not quite, but close. And so he glanced at all that and said, yeah, this is going to be fine. Go for it. And, he never wavered. He was always very supportive.
Very interesting. I've never heard quite that story before.
Yeah. It's a fun one. Yeah.
Well, how many companies do you know in this industry?
Yeah, exactly. 2.
There you go.
All right. So whenever you started this company as a kid, you started in Blue Ridge where you were living, which
Right.
is northeast
Right.
of McKinney,
Exactly.
Texas,
Mhm.
30 minutes out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And you're still there.
Right.
How do you run a company out there that far?
Yeah. It kind of works because we do 3 different things. We package our own honey and sell it to grocery stores. We raise bees and to produce our own honey. And then we also run a beekeeping supply company where we get people into beekeeping. We teach beekeeping classes, sell the woodenware, everything they need to get started in beekeeping. And so it kind of works being out in a remote area because you can't have thousands of beehives in urban areas. And so the beekeeping side of the company had to be in a rural area, so Blue Ridge was a natural fit. And then the packing company and the retail side of the company, the Texas Bee Supply, the classes and all kind of evolved once we were already there.
So those are just natural extensions of what you were doing anyway.
Right.
So you started off producing the honey,
Exactly.
and then realized these other things were going to be a
Right.
fit.
Right.
What does it do for you as a company to provide classes? Is it just charging for the classes, or does that build demand somehow?
So the classes, it does a couple different things. I mean, one of the big things that we're passionate about at Desert Creek is really building and helping the beekeeping industry. Kind of giving back to what the industry and community has given to us. And so that's a part of it is we want to help other people get started in the hobby and the job and career that we're so fascinated with. And so that's a big part of it. It's just giving back to them. We charge basically our cost to teach our beekeeping classes. And, we do sell bees, and that is part of it. Some of them go on and buy bees from us or the equipment to get started. And so we do make some money from that.
What do bees cost?
Well, it's hard to break it down per bee. There's about 100,000 in a hive, and we sell a hive for a couple $100. So I guess I could do the math. But, one full beehive to kind of get started is, only a few $100s. And, you can make that back in honey in your first year.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what happens when your inventory keeps dying on you.
Sounds
Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand. And landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy one that you can articulate? Or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
Hey, this is Randy Harn with Penny Strategies. I just got through talking to Bob and Steve, and I'm telling you that Steve had a Christmas sweater on, and he needs to save his pennies to buy a better sweater.
Welcome back to The Next Level. We're here with Blake and Brandon Shook, CEO and President of Desert Creek Honey. You can find them at desertcreekhoney.com.
Okay, so Brandon, one of the things I'm curious about is what is it about you guys, Desert Creek Honey, that's so different than your competitors? Because there's a lot of different producers, right?
Sure, there
And
are.
there's a lot, but there's only a few names that I see on the shelf in the store.
Right. So the honey industry, by and large, is dominated by some really large companies that are packing companies. It's very rare in the industry to find honey that is produced, packaged, and sold by the same entity. It would be akin to buying salsa at the store, right? And the guy who's selling you the salsa is the same guy who grew the vegetables in his backyard, cooked the salsa, bottled it, and hand-delivered it to you.
That's awesome.
That's what we do with honey, and that's incredibly rare.
And what's the advantage of that?
The advantage of that is, one, quality control. We are not buying honey from overseas and importing it from 15 other countries, or even from all over this particular country. We are producing it ourselves. We know where it comes from. We know that it's pure. We know that it has not been adulterated in any way, and we know that it's a true, raw, unfiltered honey. And then we can present that to our consumers as the real deal, as it certainly is. Honey is the second most lied about food product in the United States.
How do you measure that?
I have no idea. That's what I'm told. and as
lies?
such,
I mean, like, what kind of lies?
just a lot of honey's adulterated.
Okay.
With corn syrup, with water, with other things that are added to it to make it less than pure. And a lot of times the companies who are selling honey aren't doing that themselves, but they're buying it from overseas where it has been adulterated. So
Gotcha.
it's really, really difficult to know that the honey you're purchasing is true, raw, unfiltered, unadulterated honey. We can guarantee that ours is because we own the hives.
So how hard is it to compete against, these huge companies that are importing it? And are they able to get scale quicker? Or do you even want scale?
Sure, yeah, we definitely want scale, but it's much more difficult to scale because for us to scale, it's not as simple as purchasing more honey.
Yeah.
It's producing more honey, and that's an entirely different proposition.
So are you saying that as a core value, you guys won't buy honey from other producers?
At this point in time, we don't. We produce our own honey. Yeah.
And we do partner with we have a lot of great friends in the industry who we run our bees together. We help them run their bees. We work with them. And so we do have a lot of options. If we ever do run out of our own honey, then we have, close friends and people we work with that can help supply that honey. It's not just random honey purchased from all over the U.S. It's, hey, these are guys we work with. These are our friends. These are families that we know. And we're kind of helping along the way in all points of production. So we have a lot of resources there within the beekeeping industry that a lot of other packing companies wouldn't have.
So I would gotta imagine the budgets are huge for some of these other companies.
Sure.
And I'm sure they have capital raises and everything else.
Right.
Do you guys want that do you want investment, or is the fact that you have to produce it all, like, that's gotta happen first so the capital doesn't help, or?
Capital always helps.
Sure.
I think as a general rule, we've shied away from taking on investors because what we don't want to happen is we don't want to take on investors that dictate, well, you need to start buying honey and increase your
Gotcha.
profit margins, or you need to, in order to reduce costs, we're going to have to start buying honey from Argentina, for example.
Sure.
We really don't want to get into that scenario.
Smart.
We're happy with the current growth rate, which is tremendous, but it's also something we can sustain on our own without any sort of outside investment. So.
That's awesome.
So what is the big risk in your business?
There are many, and we kind of have three different legs of the company, and each one has their own unique risks and problems. On the beekeeping side, it's hard to keep bees alive. The average annual loss is about 44% right now. So 44% of hives die every year.
Why is that?
And it's because of something called colony collapse disorder and many other issues. We all hear in the news about bees disappearing. And one thing that we see is we see a plethora of issues attacking the bees all at once. Used to there would only be one issue that would hurt bees at one time. Now we have sprays, we have pesticides, we have varroa mites that suck the bees' blood, we have diminishing forage, clean forage for the bees. There's urbanization, monoculture's all expanding, and so we have all these issues that are all putting stress on bees at the same time, and they're not able to stand up to that level of stress. A lot of people believe that bees are kind of the canary in the coal mine for the whole environment, and we see a decline in all pollinators, butterflies, bats, native bees. They're all declining rapidly, and so as beekeepers, that's tough. It's tough to continue keeping your bees alive and healthy when so many environmental factors are opposing you.
Sounds bleak. So what's the solution there? What do you do?
Yeah, so we really work, we feel like we have to work harder than a lot of other people. We have to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to keep our bees healthy. We spend a lot of time making sure our bees are in areas that are good for them nutritionally, that they're foraging on clean plants that aren't sprayed, that aren't in industrial areas. We really try to focus on keeping our bees healthy in every way we can, no matter the cost and time or money.
Can the tide be turned on something like that? It sounds like if you said 40%.
Yeah,
that sounds insane.
It's hard to imagine turning that tide without some pretty incredible radical rethinking of how agriculture is handled in the United States. So could the tide be turned? Yes. So I think it will. It's unlikely.
Wow.
So if you have 40% dying a year, is that 40% of the newbies, or is that 40% of all bees? And if so, how do you then make up for that?
Right. So that's 40% of all bees. And you make up the 60% remaining the following year. You can take one really good hive and you can split it into another hive, into two hives. The hard thing is keeping that 60% that's still alive healthy. Now, if you've got 60% that are alive and they're all fantastic and you can split them all once, well, you're doing okay. If that 60% is weak and you can't increase, then that's when you really get into trouble. So it is not sustainable in the long run, unfortunately.
And so so one thing I'm curious, since a little bit of transition, but we're talking a lot about there's an art to your business.
Right.
It sounds like.
Right.
I mean, it's
Absolutely.
science too, but there's an art to it. And now you're building your business and you have these different arms. So what are the inflection points as a high school kid starting a business
Right.
that you said, hey, I need help? Were there breakdowns? How do you end up with your brother coming in to be president?
Sure. Yeah, so there have been plenty of breakdowns. There have been plenty of issues. It was all very organic. I never sat down and kind of charted out all the different people we would need as the company grew. It really just was a matter of almost desperation. I kind of get to the point where okay, I'm working 80 hours in a week and that's got to stop. So I've got to bring somebody on to help take away 40 of my hours. And that's kind of always been the evolution of, wow, I'm bottling honey 60 hours a week. I better bring on somebody to bottle honey. And so I hire somebody to do that. And then, wow, I'm spending way too much time on sales. I better bring in somebody to do that. And so it's kind of been a natural evolution as the need arises to bring on different folks to fill in what I didn't have time to do anymore.
Have you had advisors or outside, people that have done it, that have helped you identify some of those things?
To an extent, yeah. I'm pretty involved in the industry on a national and state level, and so I've certainly talked to a lot of people in the industry that have given me a lot of great tips. And I've been to hundreds and hundreds of conferences and conventions, and I've tried to never stop learning, and so that's certainly helped. But every business is extremely unique, and this is a very unique industry where it's hard to apply some of the other principles from other companies. So it's certainly been a learning curve, and that's where the 1,000 mistakes come in, you know, and sometimes there's just there's no data out there to rely on.
So Brandon, you get the call from Blake and he says, hey, I need some help over here.
Sure.
And you got a full-time career going in the financial industry, I believe.
Yes.
And so what do you do? How do you suddenly decide, and tell your wife, honey, I got this great idea. I'm going to dump my job in the financial services industry and I'm going to go play with bees.
Sure. Well, first thing I did was a little bit of consulting with Blake. So for about a year, I guess, I did some consulting with him on the side, on the sales end of things, just to get a little bit better feel for his business. It seemed like a great move, and it was for me. A lot of the things I learned in the financial industry apply really well to running this business. And so once I was able to see the value in what he was doing and to be able to go somewhere where I knew I could make a huge impact immediately, that was really valuable to me. 4 of the 5 brothers work at Desert Creek Honey.
Wow.
So I really enjoy that aspect of it. And I knew that I would. Just the chance to work with family and friends was a huge draw for me as well. But just a chance to build something. In the world of finance, you can get swallowed up. And I was working for some of the largest firms in the industry. And it was great. I enjoyed finance. I hope I never have to go back to it, but it was good. But this is better. This is better. This is making an actual impact on a company. And that was really appealing to me.
So what's next for you guys? I mean, we're 3 years down in the future, looking back to today. What are you guys shooting for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, we have lots of dreams, lots of hopes, lots of plans. And, but in a lot of ways, my hope 3 years from now is that no matter where we are, no matter how much we've grown or not, that we just stay true to what we've always been as a company, that we focus on being a beekeeping company first, and that we're making a difference in the industry that we're in, that our customers and clients know that we care about them as individuals, that we care about bringing them a product that is everything we say it is, and that we're taking care of the people that work for us, and that the people that are there are happy, that they're thrilled with the job they have. They never feel like a number. And so, I guess, I would love to be at 10 times our current size, 10 times our current sales, triple the number of hives. But at the end of the day, I really want us just to remain true to who we are. And if that's where we still are in 3 years, I'm happy with that.
So, Brandon, that's an interesting reply, because you've been brought in to kind of grow this thing and all that. So then you're hearing him say that.
Yeah.
That puts you in a bit of a hard spot, doesn't it?
Not necessarily. I mean, as we aggressively chase market share, we also have in the back of our minds that market share is not everything, that the soul of a company, that maintaining integrity is more important than a career. And that doesn't clash at all. We're going to chase profits, but we're not going to do it at the cost of something more important.
And that's probably, quite honestly, what's going to lead to you capturing that market share.
I think so.
Right.
Yeah, that's why you've gotten where
people
you are.
are starving for that kind of level of authenticity nowadays.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being our guest today. Really appreciate it.
Thank
For our
you.
listeners,
Thank you.
please go to desertcreekhoney.com. Learn more about the show. Go to nextlevelshow.com and find us on podcast at The Next Level Show.
Help spread the word.
See you next week.
See ya.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.